Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brent, joined by
Aaron.
Hey, we are back in the set.
It's been a while.
It has been a while.
I had to
like
dust this
it.
sucker off, man.
I like the new additions to the wall hangings.
Oh yeah,
That's
those look good. So this week, our good and dear friend the Boat, he's out of here. We kicked him to the curb. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh
Yeah, because I'm not going to bring you in.
no.
So Boat is in France. He's in France, the big F. In fact, I think he's flying out of France this very morning. Now we are recording right before we post this thing, so this
Recording on Father's Day.
Yeah, on Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And Boat is heading out of France. I think he may be on the plane as we speak, winging his way back to the good old US of A. But we are carrying the load this week as we take a good hard look at Darkseed.
Yes.
Darkseed. But before we do, we've got some feedback. Some feedback. And Boat said, listen, we're going to read this feedback. So read it we shall. So this feedback is from a fellow named David Pickford. And he writes, hi guys, just wanted to drop you a quick note to say how much I love your podcast. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
On my commute to work, I flip-flop between Amigos, ARG Presents, hey, I've heard of that, and the Retro Hour, I heard of that too. And the drive just flies by. I'm originally from the UK as a child of the 1980s with two elder brothers. We had a variety of 8 and 16-bit computers. ZX81, Texas Instruments, man, he had a TI. BBC Model B, C64, Amiga 500,
Woo,
and the Big Daddy, the Acorn Archimedes. Me want one of those so desperately. I moved to the USA 16 years ago and got back into retro gaming around 2 years ago.
Hey.
So far, I have acquired a NTSC C64, a PAL C64C, and my pride and joy, an Amiga 1200 with 32 gigabyte CF card and 030 accelerator. Lucky boy.
Wow, there you go. That's the one to own.
Yeah, I've noticed a recurring theme in the show has been obtaining power supplies for Amigas. That's true. And I just thought I would let you know about Ray Carlson. Ray is an expert in Commodore 8-bit electronics and has been helping fix up one of my C64s. He also builds power supplies for 8-bit Commodores and the Amiga.
Hey.
And he's sent a link, which we'll link this up. They're a bit expensive, but very well made, and I've been happy with mine. I use one to power my Amiga 1200 and the C64C. Keep up the great work, David. Hey, thank you, David. It was
Let me tell you something. Quality and power supplies, incredibly important.
Well, you'd think that, but I've been limping along and dragging them up power supplies for quite a while, including the Polish Miracle that I have in the still used on my 1200 in there. But as we move forward in the Amiga world, we all know that these products ain't getting any younger, and that is one of the first things to go.
Yeah, and you hope it goes quietly and doesn't take a lot of stuff with it.
That's true. So let's move on to just the briefest of brief Amiga news. I want to go just touch on a few things.
Sure.
Our good and dear friend Chris Foles.
Sent.
That's right. You're filling in perfectly. He has sent in something I saw that spread hither and yarn. Worthy, fabulous Amiga OCS action puzzler is finally here. And we've got a link on our Google+. I had a look at this, just the briefest of looks, and it looks interesting. I would say that action puzzles aren't not necessarily my bag, but hey, I've been known to dabble.
Now, when you say action puzzles, are you talking like Lemmings type variety? Would you
I'm not
consider
sure.
that an
Have you not
action
played
puzzle?
this? I would. Yes. Yeah. No.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider action puzzler to be limited. I'd say an action puzzler would be Impossible Mission 2. Would come to mind.
I see a lot more action, a lot less puzzle.
Or maybe something like The Lost Vikings.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, all right.
Or even Benefactor, which I don't think you've played, Brinster. But that we played, looked at that one here recently. Another thing I wanted to touch on was we are prepping. The prepping has begun for the AmigaThon. AmigaThon 2018.
July 7th.
July 7th.
It's going to be a big, long day.
If you were in America, it'll be 6:30 in the morning. I'll be staggering to boats to get myself prepped for at least 15 hours of gameplay. We have received a lot of donations, and we appreciate everyone that's sent in. All the proceeds go toward the Children's Miracle Network hospitals, and they will be sent directly to them. We are simply raising the money.
It doesn't even go through Amigos' hands.
No.
It's straight from your hands to theirs.
We cannot be. You can't use our math skills to do these sums. That would be foolish.
You'd either end up donating $1 million or 12 cents.
The Children's Miracle Network would go in hock if we were trying to figure out what was going on. But we're going to be playing games. I believe we're going to be taking donations for. The way Boat's been doing it is for every dollar you donate, you get a minute of game time, and I believe that's going to continue right up until the last day. I don't know if he set a cutoff date on it, and after that, we will be taking donations during the event, of course, and donations will go toward who is going to receive the very deadly, the very painful pie to the face. I have been told that Boat is currently winning the race, so we need more of that Boat money coming in to pie this prim and proper sweater vest wearing sucker who mocked me incessantly as I was in agonizing whipped cream pain and agony last year. So I'd be more than happy to see the Boat take one for the team. But we hope you'll join us for at least some of the event. It should be entertaining. We'll have tons and tons of wacky guests. I'm sure the Brent will stop by.
I plan on being there for more than a couple hours.
Some of your other Amiga notables, I know our good friend John is gonna be around, so it should be a good time. Join us on July 7th. We'll have more details coming, but it should be a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely.
Site news this week. We of course have a secondary show called Insert Disc 2. Except there's a girl that does that voice now, not me. And
same difference.
Well, it's a robot girl. He canned the robot man. He said that's gone. So, so we'll have a discussion. I'm trying to think what our discussion was last week. I believe it was on Boat's trip to France, so it's timely, and it was also on Dungeons and Dragons of all things.
Man, good episode. That's one worth listening to.
So if you want to check that out. Feel free to pop on by. I don't know if there's any. I don't have it right in front of me. I don't think there was anything else released. Dreamcatcher may have put up an article, but I'm going to check. But I think that's all we've got news-wise this week. So
don't forget the ARG show.
How could I forget that?
You're a part of it, so I don't know.
We have a little show. Me and this guy are doing the Brent. ARG presents, and we have Brent has usurped, taken. Beat down the Boat, taking the spot, and he is on the crew full time. And we're looking at some consoles, some unusual, some oft overlooked consoles and arcade stuff. And we just got finished playing Sega CD titles last week.
One of the best in
and then yours.
One of the mediums.
Brent has quickly established a gimmick on the show for picking garbage.
That's not true.
That streak continues unabated in the next edition of the show. We'll be playing Neo Geo. So if you want to hear about some non-Amiga related stuff and just hear us joke around, come check us out over on ARG Presents. We have both YouTube and downloadable podcast versions.
Yes. All right, let's fire forward.
So before we move on to the main event today, you'll recall that me and Boat looked at 5 games we would take to a desert island last week on the show.
Last week, yeah.
And so, since Brent's here this week, and Brent also had an Amiga for a while, and actually sort of grew up with it more than I did since he was younger than when we had it. Brent, I asked him to think about what he would take on the island. So, Brent, why don't you talk about some of the picks you made for what you would take out there on the island?
If I had 5 games, 5 Amiga games, that was it. That was my entertainment, all out on an island, and I had the goods to play them. One game I would definitely take, Wings.
Now, I got to agree with you there. I don't know, did you see our show last week?
I didn't take mention of your picks.
Well, you wanted to keep yourself pure.
That's right.
Okay,
these are all me, no influence.
First of all, that's the tremendous first pick. It's
Yes.
the exact same pick I made. I also chose Wings. Boat lamented that he didn't know if he preferred Wings over Three Stooges or not.
Three Stooges does not have the replayability.
That's what I said. And so, what did you like about Wings? Exactly?
Wings, you've got the long and rich story, and there's a lot going on. You've got the varied gameplay. You can really. This is something you can either marathon and play for hours and hours, so you really get to absorb that story, or you can break it up over days or weeks. Just play a mission or two. Because it kicks you right back in when you play, and I like that about the game.
I agree. Plus, I mean, it's there are varied gameplay elements too, which is nice. So I agree with that choice. Obviously, we like I said, we didn't collude on these.
No,
so
these are
great minds think alike. What do you got next?
Number 2, Chaos Engine, aka Soldiers of Fortune.
Chaos Engine. I didn't know you were into that.
Yeah.
Now you'll make a lot of our listeners happy because. They liked that game a lot more than me and Boat did.
I loved it.
Really?
Love it.
I didn't have no idea.
And let me tell you something. And you know why I'd bring it on the island? You can go through it 6 times. With the varied characters are, in my opinion, varied enough that you get a different gameplay experience as you go through it. So you pick up the Preacher one playthrough, maybe the Thug the next. 2 totally different play styles.
It did have an interesting vibe to it, and I liked the atmosphere that they had on there.
Yep.
It was good. You could do worse.
Okay. My 3rd game, something to keep the brain moving, Lemmings.
Lemmings was sort of my alternate pick. What do you like about it?
Well, Lemmings, you can play through Lemmings in 2 ways. You can just go and try to beat all the levels. Just the minimum you can save, you just keep going. Or you could really sit down, think about it. How am I going to save as many as possible? So the game has great replayability.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's funny. This wouldn't affect the Desert Island, but for the few levels they provide, the multiplayer is pretty fun too. Me and Bo did it, and we had a good time playing with it. I don't know if you were. I don't know.
I have played multiplayer.
Oh,
yeah. Yep. In school days.
Uh-huh.
But that's not where Lemming shines.
Yeah. So what do you got next?
4th game, and this is kind of an oddball one. TV sports basketball.
I also chose this as an alternate because it's so great. It's my gosh! I didn't realize we had such similar tastes.
Well, here's what I was thinking with TV sports basketball. Fun to play.
Yes.
You can spend eons adjusting your players, adjusting your rosters, adjusting the stats. A lot of fun there. And also, you can just sit back, watch the computer play itself. You can play as the coach instead of actually playing the game, just to substitute players.
I didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, you can play the players themselves. So it's got a lot of varied gameplay.
You've also got a full season.
Yeah, season mode.
Those are valid points. Now, in my sports category, I went with Lotus 2. Over this, but this was a very close second.
The reason why, and this is why Chaos Engine was a little on the teetering side, but I ultimately went for it because it's just so much fun, great action. Any game where you start it up and you're at level 1, I mean, if you can go and
save... it does have level codes, so you can pick different levels.
Are you going to write them in the sand?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, the tide comes and then you're wiped out.
You got plenty of time to memorize them.
Oh.
Write them with a monkey.
Well, if you're going to do that to a monkey, just let him play Lemmings with
There you go.
And my final choice, kind of a lame one, I'm going to admit, but it's something I would take with me regardless of console, and that's going to be Tetris. And for the Amiga, I went with Tetris Pro.
Tetris.
Yes.
I can't fault that because that is a good choice. I've not found an Amiga Tetris game that I thought was that great.
Tetris Pro is the best of the bunch. The Amiga, it's crazy. It's kind of lacking in good Tetris clones. But Amiga, the Tetris Pro, at least it's got good music, good gameplay. It fills the bill.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So that would be my 5. Wings, Chaos Engine, Lemmings, TV Sports Basketball, and Tetris Pro.
Not bad. And I agree with so many of those. I'm actually very surprised. So, that dispatched, let's get on to this week's game. I'm going to grab the Gambletron 5000 here. I'm saving paper this week. And we're going to talk about Darkseed.
Yes.
This was our good friend Adam suggested we play this one. Darkseed, I have to say I'd never played it. Had you played it? I had heard of it. I'd seen the box.
The box is iconic because of the subject matter.
Right.
I had not played Darkseed until you said, "Hey, let's brush up on this one," and I missed this. This is a really solid game.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. There's a little bit of a disclosure there. So, this came out in '94 on a disc, and this was developed by an outfit called Cyber Dreams. This game, of course, one player. This is your classic
point and click
adventure game. I wouldn't say classic because this game had a gimmick, and I'll get into it. This game got a few conversions, more than I would have thought.
Yeah, a lot.
And actually. I think the one I saw in the stores was, and it was the same box, was the PC version, but they all look the same. You had your the Apple Mac Classic got a port. Weird, but I mean, I guess it makes sense given what it is. It's probably pretty easy to port. The PC DOS and Windows got ports.
Mm-hmm.
The Saturn.
Yes, that's the one I don't understand.
The PlayStation also got a port on it as well. And they were all apparently pulled off of the original PC DOS release. So this is not an Amiga first game. This was done on some other games. So Darkseed, what is it? Well, it's a game, like we said, that's a point and click affair. The opening of this game is very, very graphic and disturbing, and by the standards of the day. You see a man strapped to like a chair and having something injected into his brain.
Yeah.
Literally, they rip his head open and they shove a thing in there, and then that's the way the game starts. It's very crazy. And so, to understand how this works, I should have mentioned there also is a CD32 port of this, which I'll get into in a moment. I actually played both. So, this game is basically a vehicle for the artwork of this guy named Giger. Now, over here, me and Bo have talked about old Giger many times. We have pronounced his name Geiger for our entire lives. I don't know. Did you ever heard it pronounced Giger or Geiger?
I mispronounced my own name, so I'm not going to get into that.
Fair enough. So, H.R. Giger, his name's Hans Rude Giger. He is Swiss, and he died just a few years ago at the age of 74 in 2014.
Decent run.
I'd say Giger is most well known, at least in America, for his work on the Alien movies. He was tapped with producing the ships, the aliens, the art, the sets and whatnot. He's known for his ability to blend like a biomechanical style. His artwork is very stylized. You can't help but know it's one of his works or a derivative when you see it. And so when this company came around to utilize Giger's work in their game, and they kind of pitched it to him. He's like, listen, he's like, we're not gonna do it that way. He's like, I'm not gonna allow it because you are showing me low resolution screens, and it looks horrible. So they went back to the drawing board and came up with a way to put this in a higher res, and it turns out that this ended up being one of the first. In fact, some people say the first. There are differing opinions, but this is one of the first higher res games. The funny thing about it is when you see it, to me, it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. I wasn't struck by the incredible clarity, I guess, of the artwork or the surroundings. What did you think about that? It
certainly wasn't like walking in and seeing Dragon's Lair for the first time.
Right. It used 640 by 350 graphics. And again, this was a demand. So they basically went up a full slate on the graphics to give him what he wanted, and then he allowed the graphics to be in. Again, Giger's art is biomechanical in nature, so there's lots of industrial tubes sticking out of plants or people's with pins through their faces, or you can't miss it. And so I'm going to assume that they wrote the game around his art and what they could do with it. And I will say, on that level, they sort of succeeded. I guess if you're inspired by someone's art, this is the game you would most likely make. I mean, it's not going to be a game where you walk a puppy in the park. There's going to be some weird crap going on, weird aliens, and it's going to be some strange stuff. So in this game, you play a fellow named Mike Dawson.
Yes.
He's a advertising executive, which I don't know where I don't remember reading that in the game, so I'm guessing that came from the support material.
Yeah.
He has just bought a new mansion, and near a small town. And on the first night he's in the house, he has a nightmare that aliens, stick a weird thing in his brain, which is the opening scene of the game. Once that scene is finished, your player Mike wakes up from bed, his head's hurting, and you take over, and you are in his mansion.
Yep.
And this is where the game begins. Now, the game has an interesting It's got an interesting interface, right? Where you basically you use the mouse and the mouse buttons for pretty much everything.
Almost everything.
Yeah, and it works. We covered we've mentioned it to death. We covered a game a while back called Fly the Amazon Queen, and I liked it because the interface I thought was very simple and easy to use. This interface actually trumps that one in terms of easeability. I mean, this is not a game that's as complex or as complicated or as traditional as that. But this game is drop dead simple. You basically move your mouse around the screen. It's one of the old find the hidden button routines where you can look around till you find the item you want, and then your guy sort of will automatically do what he's supposed to do with the item. There's not a whole lot of, by that I mean, for example, the first thing you do in the game is get up out of bed, go to the bathroom, the first thing I did was find the bathroom, open the medicine cabinet, and get some aspirin, right? Because if you don't, he complains about his head hurting. Endlessly. And so all you basically are doing is pointing to where you want to go. He walks there. And when you get to a doorway, the cursor turns into like a plus sign or something. Basically you can go there. You click on it. He goes there. And then you click on what you want to open. He just opens it. You click on when you put your pointer over top of something, it tells you what it is. You click on it. And he'll either use it or inventory it, and then that's it. That's pretty much all there is to it. Is this game going to win awards for its incredible ingenuity? No. But if you want a simple, this is like, remember Myst? Remember how simple Myst was? This is sort of reminds me of a predecessor. a very simple game that is in some ways style over substance, but the interface works well for what they have put together. I had no trouble understanding how it worked, getting right into it, and once you get past, for me, and as you all know, I'm sort of a neophyte in the realm of the point-and-click adventures. Once I get over the interface and understand the rules, it gets down to the gameplay and the story. And so I was very quickly in the story. It didn't take me that long to understand what was happening. I mean, clearly they spell it out pretty much right away that something weird's happened.
Right.
It's up to you to explore the house, and that's what you do at the beginning. You explore this guy's mansion. He's got a library. The house includes a library, an upstairs foyer, a downstairs entryway, a bedroom, a bathroom, kitchen, basement, and like I said, a library. And then as you learn, which I thought this was kind of weird, when you first stumble across the map, you are instantly told that there's a secret door. And I thought, that's strange. And the secret door goes into a secret room with a ladder that goes back upstairs. And then a little bit further on, you find that there's a, spoiler alert, I guess, but you find that there's a rope that you can tie to the balcony upstairs and shimmy down to the backyard. And I thought to myself, this is strange that these would get you to places, because really that's all they do. But as I learned, this, I think, was put into the game to save you time.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to go all the way back to the mansion to get upstairs.
And the reason is because time plays an incredible element in the game.
That's the key. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, Darkseed on its surface is a pretty mediocre to good point-and-click adventure. Where it really strays from the path is it has a time element. In 3 days, you're dead. If you do not solve the mystery, you're dead, game over. There's no going back. There's no save state. You're dead. That's it.
Yeah.
You have to start over. And the game doesn't tell you this. The first time you play, you're going to die because you run out of time.
Yeah.
There's no other way around it. And you're not going to understand why you died either. But not only that, the time element has different ways of playing with the game besides those 3 days. Stores open and close based on the time of day. Your guy will get tired and go to sleep just wherever he's at. So, if it's late and you don't tell him to go to bed, he's just going to lay down and go to sleep, and that can cause you problems sometimes in the game. A neighbor says, meet me out back at 6. If you miss that prompt, if you're not there at 6, game over. Yeah. You don't know it at the time, but you just completely miss it. And this is where the only other control that I'm aware of comes into effect is you can hit T on your keyboard and pass an hour's worth of time.
Yes. And you have to use that sometimes.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you don't have to. You can just
it depends on how
there.
like for example, when you go to meet the neighbor, if you get there too early or you get to a place where there's everything's now again, you're going to screw up a lot. I used it quite a bit and then realized that was dumb.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you can use it. The element's there, and or you could just sit there and time will pass. But
Now, my biggest complaint with this was there wasn't an on-screen element that kept track of time for you. You could go and look at the clock and it would tell you what time it was. But I wish they would have actually had an on-screen element that said it is this, at least when every hour ticks by. I would have liked that. The other elements of the game, of course, and I'm going to assume you've either played Darkseed or you want to know about Darkseed. So I am going to go into some spoiler territory.
Yeah, you can't help but spoil this one.
Right, you have to talk about the game. You eventually go through a mirror into the mechanical world, or alien mechanical world.
The other side, whatever.
That's right.
Is, yeah.
And that's when the game gets special. Up until that point, you're doing a point-and-click adventure that has some horror elements because your guy hallucinates at certain points of the game. But when you go into that other alien world, that's where the artwork really kicks in. The music,
it's geared out the yin.
Yeah, the music intensifies. There's, otherworldly imagery where before it's kind of, pretty standard stuff. And you get to explore this alien world, see how it ties into the world that you live in. For me, I really enjoyed this game. I enjoyed the simplicity of the controls. You right click and you can turn it into a question mark cursor and kind of mouse over things that you think might be interesting. It'll turn into an exclamation point, and then that will allow you to click on it and get a little bit of dialogue, narration about what you see. The other characters in the game, the other NPCs, they don't play a huge part, but there is relevance to them being there. They do tie to the story. One particular, again, spoilers, the librarian is actually an alien in disguise who is doing things to help you. Putting hints in certain areas to help you progress through the game.
I couldn't tell if she was an alien or was just possessed by an alien.
Well, she's an alien.
You learn that it's literally the last thing you see in the game.
Sorta. Yeah.
And so you can't quite. I was not 100% sure. The game leaves a lot of room for debate at the end. This game clearly was open for sequel, which it did receive.
Yes, Darkseed, 2. Which I haven't played, but I'm now very interested in playing it.
So how far did you get in this thing? I gotta ask you.
I made 3 full attempts at the game. The first time I didn't understand the time element. Screwed around, and also the very first time you play it, you have absolutely no idea what you're supposed to do. I mean, they drop you in a world. They don't say you should go check out this blah blah blah. It is literally you have no idea. You were just running around, which I like in a game. I don't mind it. So the first time I just kind of clicked around. I went to all the venues. I kind of got lost. Which the one thing that Darkseed does lack on is screens. I think probably in the entire game there's probably only about 30 screens.
I'd be surprised if there was that much. To be honest with you, I noticed they were very. If you go through every scene in the game, all right, there's all the rooms in your house, plus a garage, plus a backyard. There's your neighbor's backyard. There's the city, which there's like 4 or 5 places there. And then the road to and from the city, and then the road to and from the graveyard. And then when you go to the mirror, it's sort of the same stuff in a mirror, and it's sort of the same locations with different graphics, if you notice. In fact, he even mentions it feels like going through my house.
Right.
Because you're in the mirror universe, so you're sort of going to the same places with different graphics.
Right. But they're certainly varied enough to be...
Yeah, you're probably right now think about it. Yeah.
It's definitely varied enough to be considered different locations, though. I did not get through the mirror on my first playthrough. I missed something easy and ran out of time and died. Fired it up again, made it much farther, got into the mirror universe, fell asleep while I was in the mirror universe. An alien picked me up, put me into a container. Game over. So that's another way to die.
That's how those people got the container. I didn't do that.
Yeah, I just fell. And that's the reason why I wanted an on-game timer to show me the time. I didn't realize I was that close to being needing to go to bed. Just fell asleep and died. The third time I played, I said, you know what? I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm going to not do that. And I want to try to do every possible thing. And by doing every possible thing, to go into every possible room, interacting with every possible object, I barely got back to the mirror universe before I ran out of time.
So you got pretty well into it.
I watched a run after, because I didn't want to spoil myself. So I made my runs, and then I watched someone speed run the game. I would say I was probably about 2/5 of the way through.
I think a speedrunner went through it in about an hour.
20 minutes.
Was that
20 minutes?
It wasn't now. Wow, the one I watched, it got to take about an hour. Let me tell you where I got hung up, and I'll admit I had to cheat. I had to go and look up what to do, and then I got further, and I had to cheat again.
Oh,
this is not my bag, but I did pretty good on my own. There's a coat in the closet, and there's something in the pocket.
yeah.
I didn't catch that the first time,
Oh,
so that
yeah.
cost me. I believe it was a key.
Library card.
Library card, that's what it was. So I got all the way to the library, and I got there and picked up. There's a point where you get a phone call that says you've got a book to pick up.
Yes.
I got that phone call before I went to the library the first time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're
So-
way behind the curve.
Right. So when the time element kicks in, you're screwed. And I got to a point where I just couldn't do anything. Something I thought was odd, though, like I said, the fact that you find a map that tells you there's a secret room, that was a strange, interesting thing to put. I don't know why they would tell you that.
Well, if you notice, you can't do things that your character doesn't know
Right.
that you do know.
Yeah.
So before you could even use that secret passage, you had to look at the map.
Now, and that happens quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
But one thing this game does share with a lot of its brethren is the old wacky puzzles. Like you need to pick up, like for example, there's a store in the game and you have some money, and so you can go to the store and buy some, I believe it was bourbon
With
or
Scotch.
and the guy says, "Oh man, the so and so is gonna be mad that you bought the last one," you know. Well, you have to make that leap that guy's a drinker, and that comes into play later when you give
You
him.
can offer him drink.
Yeah. There are plenty of elements that require, like another thing I had trouble with was a crowbar. If you remember that part.
Yeah.
And
What you have trouble with there?
I just couldn't find. I didn't know what to do.
Oh, all right.
And so if you're not good, if this is one of those games, if you're good at these sorts of games, you'll probably go through this pretty quick, which you'll have to because of the time limit. Now, the part where you go to the underworld or the mirror universe, that gets pretty wacky. And again, they use that area to really show off the Giger art. They really have a ton of, it's everything there's Gigered up. There's tentacles and pipes, and it's all black and gray and weird looking. Even in your living room, there's a very famous Giger painting on the wall.
Yes. Yep.
So that
the box art.
yeah, well, but I'm saying they use it in the game.
Sure.
Now, from reading people that have talked with Giger about this game, from what I could tell, he didn't have any input on the game and all he did was basically license the art. So it's not like he was supervising or even probably didn't give two craps about it when push came to shove, but he got paid. Something else I found out about Giger is there are still to this day 2 Giger built bars. I think they're both in Switzerland, and they're the most funky looking thing you ever saw.
I can believe it.
So if you want to get liquored up in the most creepy place on earth, you can go down to the Giger. I think they're called the Giger Bar. That's what they're called. But Giger, like I said, his artwork played a huge role in the game, but he himself did not. And which, from what I could tell, kept going to the second game. I didn't play or look at the second game, but from what I read here and there, it was more of the same. I tried the ECS OCS version of this, and I also tried the CD version, the CD32 version. Now the differences there were all the dialogue was read; it was spoken, and some of the dialogue is spoken in the other version. There are some points where the guy talks. I think I prefer it the old way, where it's not all spoken. Because the game does have a very creepy vibe to me. It's unsettling with the artwork, and the story is unsettling, especially considering the whole time you're playing it, you've got something in your head.
Right.
It's sort of disturbing, in a way, and it kind of threw me off. Did you hear any of the dialogue or go down that road?
I played a version that had the dialogue, which the dialogue's actually pretty well done. Did you get to a point where you picked up the baby, the baby package came?
Yeah, I wasn't even sure what the heck that was up with that.
Yeah,
that happens pretty early in the game. This package comes, the doorbell rings, you open the door, and there's a baby transforming it back and forth
baby
from
doll.
an alien, or it has a message on it or something, as I recall.
If you
how strange!
If you go into the game a little bit, something you learn is you're not the first person who's had this done to them. Pretty much all the occupants of the town have been controlled by aliens, and during the process of the alien growing inside your brain, you start to hallucinate. So anytime the baby, when it shifted to the gory after image and then back to the baby doll, that was you hallucinating. So I thought that touches like that were pretty
Why
neat.
was the baby there?
Why did you have a baby doll delivered in the first place?
Yeah,
that's
what I didn't get.
Yeah, that I don't know.
And there's the use of imagery in this, and there's a part where this sort of message sort of morphs in and out of a, what was it? He was reading a paper, or it was a library book or something. There was a message that sort of morphed in and out of it.
Yeah.
It does give you the unsettling feeling that your brain's jacked up. Yeah. You know?
And in that regards, it does really well.
It does. I mean, this was an unusual game. I think in a lot of ways it's pedestrian, but in terms
by today's standards.
Yeah, but I mean, in the artwork and stuff set it apart, and the story was definitely not pedestrian. It was unique.
Pretty good.
But I thought the actual puzzle elements were. I mean, it's not anything I hadn't seen before.
Unlike your Monkey Islands or your Police Quest or that type of games, where sometimes the correlation between item and what that item is used for is off the charts wacky. I think a lot of this is pretty down the middle of the road. I felt that you found a crowbar in the trunk of your car. Okay, I can see that. Mm-hmm. And then you use the crowbar to open a locked trunk. Okay, I can see that. I think all those type of puzzle elements, it was more about, well, can I use this for this? Oh, I can? Well, that makes sense. And I did enjoy that about the game. I think really the only thing I did not like about this game is traveling between scenes took a long time.
It did. Your guy, which is probably why they minimized the amount of time you had to do that with those extra places where you didn't have to go through an entire scene to get back to it.
And like the graveyard, the path in the graveyard has one scene where you have to walk the entire length of the screen and then the entire length back to go to the next page. That kind of stuff wears on me for as slow as your guy moves.
Yeah. We've seen that before in some of these games where the guys move painfully slow. You're just like, come on, get there.
And when you're playing through it for the second or the third time and you're trying to get a little bit farther, because if you run out of time, you have to restart. That kind of stuff makes playing it over and over again really painful.
It's not one you're going to go back to after you beat it or when you get sick of it. I mean, it doesn't have much replay value. It's sort of just showing it to your buddy, I guess, so to look what's going on. And there are some pretty good animated sequences in it that look pretty interesting. There's where something's going on in the scene that they've animated.
Sure. So. And the time I spent in the game, I had a very good time playing it.
Yeah.
So thumbs up for me.
I'm kind of pleasantly surprised by that. And I like I said, I thought it was different enough to be worth playing. That's for sure.
Excellent.
This game got pretty good reviews. I will say it's got a score, surprisingly high score on Lemon, 7.83. Again, they're pretty tough over there. The reviews it got, now these reviews are actually better than I thought they would be, honestly. Amiga actually gave it a 93. Amiga Computing gave it a 95. Now, Amiga Format gave it a 72. Nice. Amiga Power 88. And CU Amiga 78. And the one gave it 80. I'd say I'd put it somewhere in the 80s. I'd say.
I would give it a 7 out of 10. Which, I mean, I use
the whole 70s, man.
Well, I use the whole spectrum of a scoring chart.
What are you?
Where
Ebert? What is
that? 5 is an actual average game. So I think this is an above average game.
Yeah,
I think the biggest problems are you move too slow and the replayability isn't there.
And again, I think the puzzles are a bit pedestrian. To be honest with you.
I don't have a problem with it.
But I mean, they're not outlandish or crazy, but they're nothing special. I guess is my point. So, what do you think overall? Yeah, you like it?
Yeah.
Okay, not too bad. So. Next week, I have no idea what we're looking at. We will announce that forthwith. Boat has a lovely chart that takes care of that, but I'm sure it'll be something interesting. I believe it's an isometric game that I haven't looked at yet. I'm trying to think it was Saber Team. I think that might be the name of it, but don't hold me to that, folks.
And John will be back next week.
John will be back next week. Good old Boat, he'll be back. And I'm sure he will tell us all about France and all the Amigas he saw there, and hopefully come back with a big stack of Amiga games. Although from what he told me earlier in the week, the pickings were slim in Paris. So we'll see how that goes down. We have a Patreon page for the show, Brent, in case you didn't know it.
I'm well aware.
Yes.
Long-time sponsor.
Yes, which is we appreciate your patronage, Brent. Just leave the check at the door and get out. You know what I'm saying? You can go over to everythingamiga.com, and we have a link to our Patreon page. And we've got a slew of lovely Patreon supporters that
a lot of good folks
help us out and give us a few bucks here and there to keep the ball rolling. It really does help. I mean, we've got lights and green screens and stuff that we've picked up thanks to Patreon. I mean,
and it all goes back into the show.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah. I remember when we first started, we literally had just a couple cheapo headsets. They were quite horrible, and we have managed to get some better equipment. Of course, if we could only hire better looking hosts that were more talented.
Well, I'm hoping my money gets there someday.
Yeah, right. Just keep adding a couple zeros to that, eh? Normally, Boat will sit here and just sing off all the Patreon subscribers' names, but I don't have that ability to sing or dance or do card tricks. So this week, I will just give you my hearty thanks to all the fine Patreon folks. You know who you are, and we respect you and hope that you will keep on taking care of us. Again, I want to reiterate that we are doing the AmigaThon, July 7th.
2018.
2018. You keep throwing that in there.
Some people are going to listen to this in 2019 and think, "Oh man, I'm going to donate."
They should just go ahead and send the money. We'll take it then too. It's weird to think into the future that because we just it's funny, unceremoniously we had our 150th episode last week, so this is the 151st episode, Brent. That you're kicking off the new era with a bang. But we do appreciate you guys that have already donated onto the AmigaThon, and for those of you that want to check it out, again, it'll start 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the USA. Adjust your clocks accordingly, and we will be going for at least I think bare minimum right now it's 15 hours of old school Amiga game action. In fact, we are beginning preliminary testing to see the easiest way to get these games to all work, because that we've had trouble last year with the actual games, getting them on the show. So we're going to make sure everything's working okay. So anyway, I think that wraps up. Any final thoughts?
If you want to see more of my lovely mug or listen to my enchanting voice, I am a permanent resident over at ARG Presents now with my that thing. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week.
All right, so Bud will be back next week, and until then, adios.